Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1984 film Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, and this is directed by Joseph Zito and stars Kimberly Beck and Corey Feldman. After waking up at the morgue, Jason is back again and starts to slay unsuspecting campers staying at a getaway house next to the Jarvis family. Well guys, I am carrying on my Friday the 13th franchise review series. I've reviewed the first three movies in this series, so if you do want to check them out, I'll leave them in the playlist down below. Also, I'm going to be reviewing more of the Friday the 13th films, and when I do them all, there will be a ranking at the end. And don't forget, there are going to be spoilers ahead in this review. Now, I've actually watched this movie 3 times just this year. I rented this on VHS back in the day after being a big fan of Friday the 13th 1 and 3, and it just made sense to rent this one. It was the next one in the franchise that I hadn't seen, and I couldn't really get on board with it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first and the third movie. I just didn't see what the fuss was about. And it's been such a long time since I revisited this movie. So when I did revisit it, I thought, okay, I'm very excited to watch this one. Maybe I'll see something here as an adult that I didn't really see as a kid, or my teenage eyes couldn't really grasp that was so good about this movie. And I felt exactly the same. I was like, what's the great thing about this movie? Like, everyone loves it. It's like a very popular pick in the Friday the 13th franchise. And when I couldn't really feel what them people were feeling, I instantly watched it again the very next night. And it did improve a little bit, but I was still thinking, there's no way this is the best Friday sequel. I enjoyed part 3 so much more than this. So yeah, I kind of just carried on with the rest of the franchise. Now I've revisited it once again for review purposes, because I'm revisiting the whole franchise to review them, and it may have improved a little bit more there. So let's get into it. First off, there's no denying that Jason is fucking awesome in this movie. I think the look of him is improved slightly. Like, the mask has a little bit more of a touched up feel to make it more professional, if you like, and the whole outfit he's wearing just seems to stand out a little bit more. But Ted White does a great portrayal of this famous serial killer here, because he is just absolutely brutal in this movie. Like, in the third movie, kind of stalked a little bit at times. He was always in and out of the barn, closing the door, making people know that he may be over there or someone is in the barn. But here, there's not really too much of that. He is just going at it. I mean, he is just taking people out left, right, and center with no empathy whatsoever. I mean, he just seems so pissed off that he was actually beaten by Chrissy in the third movie, and he wants to take it out on all these camp counselors here. I mean, he is just so menacing. Some of the kills here are just awesome. We have a guy who basically is sawn with a hacksaw through his neck about halfway, and then Jason gets bored and just snaps his neck because he just wants to get this guy dead. We also have a corkscrew slammed into someone's hand, and while the guy can't move, and Blader just swiped right into his face there. I mean, I was like, holy shit, man, he is not letting up. There's another scene where he harpoons a guy in the balls, lifts him up, and then presses the harpoon gun to shoot him out even further. And I was like, oh my God, I can absolutely feel that. It was just makes you squirm in your seat, especially as a male. And there was another kill, man, that just really stood out, where this girl is looking out of the window. She's kind of curious to what's outside. And next minute, Jason, it's an upstairs window, by the way, so he's sort of climbed up the house. She comes through the window, smashes it through, grabs her, and throws it onto a car below, and all the windows smash. Yes, there's a lot of window smashing in this movie. I think Joseph Zito definitely wanted to carry on that theme that the first couple of movies had, or the first 3 movies, should I say. But he's just brutal, man. He's taken no prisoners here. He's bursting through doors with an absolute purpose. I mean, it's just constant kill, kill, kill once it get going. And I've got to say, Tom Savini done some fantastic practical effects here, as usual. The master, isn't he, of course? So great to have him on board here. But I just absolutely love when Jason gets going in this movie. And another kill I just quickly want to mention there. That girl is just lying on the boat, and he comes from under the water, pulls her down, just shoves the knife through the boat. Man, yeah, the carnage candy is right here. And I gotta say, so far, this is visually the best looking Friday the 13th movie and the best directed Friday the 13th movie. There's a mini one-shot sequence that opens the movie, and I absolutely love it. It's basically all the emergency services are around the camp, Higgins Haven, I believe it was, from the third movie, and the camera is just sort of panning through the camp there, and we're seeing police officers walk past, investigating what went on, paramedics picking up dead bodies and stuff, and this camera eventually lands at the body of Jason Voorhees, but it's just got an awesome score in the background. I'm kind of getting goosebumps talking about it now, and it just really sets up the movie and gets you right in the mood for Friday the 13th, the final chapter. The lighting is done so slickly too, and extra praise for all the fog being pumped onto the set. It just gives off a real horror movie vibe, a real slasher vibe. So kudos for them for making the extra effort, but you can just tell this is better production wise. Now, having this all take place in the one house in the middle of this massive thunderstorm was another great idea for this film, I think. Instead of having it all in the camp like the previous three films, it feels like more of an isolated feel because the weather is so bad here. The thunder is just constant, and it kind of makes the characters not want to leave the house. So they're kind of all just stuck in there. Who wants to go out in horrible weather anyway? So they're kind of all just stuck in there together, just trying to have fun, whatnot. But it just feels like the perfect trap for Jason Voorhees to take these out one by one, unbeknownst to them, of course. And they don't really notice till the bodies start piling up. But it's just a perfect little trap, I feel, where Jason can just do his thing. I gotta say, some of the characters here are fun to be around as well. You've got them two twins who the main characters kind of run into randomly, and they're kind of fun to be around. You got Ted, who is always calling Jimbo a dead fuck, and I laugh my ass off every time he's winding him up there. Just, really, really a fun little connection them two have. You got Rob, who's a brother of one of the victims from the second movie, I believe, and he has come to investigate what is going on with Jason and, what happened here. And I think that's a fun little subplot to have. So there's a bunch of fun characters here. However, there are some that I don't really vibe with too much. Now, Trish is really the main final girl here, and I've got mixed opinions on her because she doesn't really do anything wrong. But she's my least favourite final girl in the series so far. Now, people may argue that she isn't exactly a final girl. It's more like Tommy is the final boy. And yes, people are probably correct when they say that. But I just feel like they've had so many final girls so far that you can't ignore the fact that she is this movie's final girl, basically. But there's so much focus on a lot of the other characters that they bounce from her and Tommy to the other characters, and they feel like they get less screen time than them. So there's not really much room for her to get too attached to, if you like. And Tommy himself, again, I'm not too fussed on. Now, I know the start of the Jarvis trilogy was here, really, with Corey Feldman's portrayal of the character. I don't dislike him. I just don't see the fuss around this character in this movie. I mean, he doesn't really bring too much to it apart from the last 5 minutes of the film. He's got this weird little mask collection in his room. He's showing Rob around the room and his mask collection. I'm just like, what are we doing here? What's this got to do with the movie, really? Maybe someone in the comments can let me know and I'm totally wrong, but I just didn't really see what we were going for here. And what's with his weird little sexual arousals? Like when he looks over the house and there's a chick getting undressed, he's just jumping around the bed going, ow! Cracks me up every single time. He's just a strange little kid, isn't he? But it did feel like a little bit of a copy and paste of Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, Ginny there puts Jason's jumper on to sort of confuse him a little bit, and here Tommy shaves his hair to make him look like a kid Jason, to confuse Jason. So it's sort of exploiting his weakness. I get that it's Jason's main weakness, but it just feels like the same thing. I don't think this is a spectacular way to kill the character off or anything like that. I mean, this was meant to be the final movie. That was the intentions. Of course, we all know that didn't come to fruition, but maybe they just thought, look, this is Jason's weakness, and we're going to go with that because this is the only way to kill him. But I don't know. I just think it's stupid, really. I mean, we've seen it once before. Do we really need to see it again? Could come up with something a little bit more inventive, it is basically the same scenario. Just instead of his mother, it's basically child Jason there. But what I will say I love about Tommy is that he takes no prisoners at the end and smashes the shit out of Jason with that blade. Too many final girls or final boys, whatever you want to call it, leave the killer and walk away, and he gets up. And Laurie Strode does it in Halloween 78, for God's sake. Allison does it in the first movie, so I'm glad Tommy beat the shit out of Jason there when he had the chance. But seriously, them two haircuts rocked by Corey Feldman here. Jesus, man, I don't know which one is worse. It's the second one, isn't it? Yeah, the bald head with the hair by his ears. Man. Up there with Courtney Cox in Scream 3, I think, for worst horror movie haircuts, although this would beat it by a long shot. Now let's just talk about Jimbo here, played by Crispin Glover. Man, I think he's got to be the worst character in this franchise so far. I think a lot of people do actually love this guy, but my God, man, he's just such a wet wipe. It's fun to see Ted basically take the piss out of him because he believes every word that Ted says. At one point, he's asking why his girlfriend left him, and Ted gets this invisible computer out. Yes, invisible. And says, doot, 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 doot. Oh, it's because you're a dead fuck. And he starts getting paranoid and believes every word that he's saying, and he's like, oh no, am I a dead fuck? And then he just goes out of nowhere, I'm so horny. It's like the worst line delivery I've ever heard. Oh God, I'm horny. When he actually gets laid with one of the twins later on in the movie, he's lying there next to her and he says, can I ask you something? And I'm like, oh no, please don't ask her if you were a dead fuck. And he goes, was I a dead fuck? Just like, oh my God, man. I was cringing inside for the guy.
Never mind. Was I a dead fuck?
But not as bad as that dance scene. Oh my God, what the hell was that? I have seen professional dancers do the greatest dance sequences I've ever seen on film, on stage shows, and I'm like, man, I could never recreate that. But this is lightning in a fucking bottle. I don't even think Crispin Glover himself could recreate this. I think he said that's how he used to dance in clubs when he was younger and stuff. I don't believe him. I think he just spontaneously done this on the spot. I mean, I was watching it go, what the hell? This is so bizarre. It's one of the most what the fuck moments. In fact, it is the most what the fuck moment in this franchise so far. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It is so bad. I mean, everything this guy does or says just makes me feel awkward. It makes my skin crawl. He's just such a awkward character. Even when everyone is skinny dipping in the lake, he can't even like get his clothes off. He's like fall over his trousers. He's trying to pull them off. Like I said, worst character so far. Also, as much as I like the character Ted in this movie, later on you can see that his acting skills aren't really up to scratch. There's quite a few times where he's watching this silent movie in the cabin and he's just kind of laughing along. Why he would find this funny, I don't know, although he is smoking a joint at the time, so anything is funny then, isn't it? But his laugh is so fake, and I'm just like, oh man, he is so forcing this moment. It's kind of taking me out of his character a little bit. I mean, he was doing fine till then, but man, his acting skills, just right there, he can't do laughing scenes, put it that way, and it does stand out a lot. But I think it's quite funny how he's calling Crispin Glover's character Jimbo a dead fuck all the way through it and trying to give him woman advice, and in the end Jimbo robs the girl he's trying to get into and goes and takes her upstairs while Ted sat there smoking his joint. So it sort of backfires on him really now, doesn't it? I will say there are a few hand-on-shoulder jump scare moments in this movie as well where I'm like, oh, kind of an eye roll. However, I do forgive it a little bit more for movies in this era because it was prevalent back then. I'm more hard on movies from like 2024 that kind of do the same thing here because it's a tired trope now. Also, while the kills here are absolutely awesome, I just wish they were a couple of seconds longer because they cut away very, very quickly. You see the carnage and you're like, holy shit, and then it's over. It's so quick. Now, I don't know if this is the director Joseph Zito's intention or it was the MPAA trying to cut the movie down, because I know it was notorious for this franchise having trouble with the MPAA. I haven't really looked into it too much for this movie, but yeah, a little bit more blood and violence, just a little bit more would have helped it massively, I thought. Now, this is more of a personal thing because I love the third movie that much and it's probably my favourite in the franchise so far, but I really would have loved an explanation as to where Chrissy went, because she was my favourite final girl and there's nothing really to suggest where she went, what happened to her. Maybe they just wanted to move on with more characters, but I just would have just loved a little bit of information. Also, just a side note here, have we actually gone back to Camp Crystal Lake since the first movie? I mean, the second part of this series was a camp next to it, because we visit the old camp. The third movie is Higgins Haven. And this is just a house by the Jarvis family. It's never actually mentioned that this is Camp Crystal Lake. I don't recall. Which is just weird to me because it's one of the most famous horror movie locations of all time. But we haven't been there since the first movie. Correct me if I'm wrong underneath. But I don't remember this getting mentioned in the movie. However, guys, I will say I did enjoy this movie a hell of a lot more this time. It's definitely a grower. I can see myself revisiting this many more times throughout my life because I kind of want to watch it again, even though I've seen it 3 times this year. I don't think it's the best sequel, but it's a pretty good movie. I mean, I give it 2.5 on Letterboxd. I give it 3, then I give it 3.5. So it's definitely getting up there and being a better rewatch for me overall. It's entertaining. It's got an awesome Jason. It's a good Friday the 13th movie. I'm just going to go ahead and rate this movie now. I'm going to give Friday the 13th, the final chapter, a 7 out of 10. Quite the equivalent to 3.5 on Letterboxd there. Yep, pretty solid sequel. Looking forward to carrying on this series. Okay, guys, at the end of these reviews, I always like to leave a little fun fact. Now, a fun fact for Friday the 13th, the final chapter, is that Ted White is the oldest person to portray Jason Voorhees at 58 years old. He's also the longest lived cast member at 96 years old. Man, he done so well to portray Jason in this movie at 58. The way he moves, how quick he is. So well done to him. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this review. Don't forget to check out my other Friday the 13th movie reviews. The link will be in the playlist down below. And also, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe if horror is your sort of thing. Thanks so much, guys. You take care. And I'll see you all in the next video.